Whoa. Almost knocked off the bell. Call to order the meeting of the August 13th already, Rotary Club of Des Moines. I'm President Doug Saltzgaver, and I'm happy to be back for the third week in a row at Wakanda. With all of you here live and in person, and those of you who are watching now or watching later on the Rotary YouTube channel, welcome to all of you, and thanks to Invictus Media again for filming our meeting. Again, we will be sanitizing the microphone between speakers, so bear with us. And with that, I'm going to invite Bob Vedral up to give us some inspiration today.
Thank you, President Doug. I know at this time we're all thinking about our fellow citizens in the state of Iowa that have suffered some very greatly from the storm on Monday. So let's keep all those people in our thoughts and prayers and as they recover. You know, we're all on a journey in life. And every day is a journey because we get up and decide what we're going to do. And I wanted to read a poem about a journey. Two roads diverge in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler, long I stood, and I looked down one as far as I could, to where it bent in the undergrowth. Then took the other, just as fair, and having perhaps the better claim, because it was grassy and wanted wear. Though as for that the passing there had warned them really about the same, and both that morning equally lay, in leaves no step had trodden black. Oh, I kept the first for another day, yet knowing how way leads on to way, I doubted if I should ever come back. I shall be telling this with a sigh. Somewhere ages and ages hence, two roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, justice for all. All right, now the four-way test. Is it the truth? John Stark, is it?
Is it the truth, sir?
Okay. Is it fair to all concerned? Jamie, is it?
Yes.
All right. Will it build goodwill and better friendships? John, Tone, what? All right. Will it be beneficial to all concerned? President Doug?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Bob. I don't think we've ever had anything quite that enthusiastic before, as I heard from past President Sean. And as a reminder, this is the only volunteer duty we need help with to fill each week. We're only asking everyone to do one job, just one. So if you haven't signed up for doing the inspiration, I ask that you would, please. You can sign up online to share a moment, or let Kitty know, and she'll help you out there. Now it's that time again. Please wave to your fellow Rotarians, since we can't be shaking hands with one another right now. Jamie? We have happy birthday wishes going out to Dave Kenworthy and Matt Unger. We hope they're enjoying their special day and can watch our meeting later if they're not already watching. And they're probably not here because you know what they're doing right now. They're partying like it's 1999. And today I have the pleasure myself of introducing the speakers. But first, a reminder about our new procedure for Q&A. If time allows for our speakers to take a few questions today. There is a mic stand as always. over here in the hallway. Kitty's supposed to be by it, but she's manually running the computer operations here, and she will sanitize the microphone between questions. And again, Sean, please don't shout out your questions from your seat. We want those watching YouTube to be able to hear you. So here we go. Central Iowa Organic Fertilizer was created by Michael and Traci and Colin Wyatt as a family-owned and operated Iowa business. Now, Michael and Traci spent their professional lives prior to being worm farmers as special agents with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, otherwise known as the FBI, or the Bureau. This is likely why a number of you are not present today, as you may still be on that most wanted list and did not want to be recognized. Actually, I'm going to need to check something here. Aha! I did get a text. One of those people that likely did not want to be seen today is actually in Bermuda and watching our live stream meeting. So I think that's a first in the history of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. And I think many times he goes by an alias name as well, so that's probably why he's not here. As retirement approached, Michael and Traci quickly realized they didn't know how to do anything but work, which is good to hear from FBI agents. And so the search for a post-retirement business started. That's not really retirement. Sound familiar to anyone here? In making this decision, they knew they wanted to create something which would have a positive impact on their community, and as they always think big, an impact on the world. And thinking big, after spending a few minutes speaking with them on what they've done, or what they could tell me what they've done around the world, they do think big, and it is global. Also, they wanted to make a business in which all three of them could work and participate. Colin was working in retail and knew the world of marketing and sales. He was a perfect fit in the family business. At this time, Michael and Traci are full-time worm farmers, and Colin is part-time in the business. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to them, and we're going to learn what former FBI agents are doing in retirement.
So Michael and I usually tag team this. I gotta look and see what time it is because he was a defensive tactics instructor, and I'm sure he'll do a takedown on me if I don't give him his full 10 minutes. And by the way, for the member who is in Bermuda, I'm not sure if we have an extradition agreement with them, but I can find out. So it may not be safe. And this is our logo. This is part of what's on the front of our bag. So if you go into any of the stores where we have our bags retailed and you see that, that's us, that's what you should buy. We are OMRI listed, or OMRI, which is the Organic Material Review Institute. They're a bunch of aging hippies, and they discovered that they could become extraordinarily wealthy. I'm assuming that because of the process and the cost involved in becoming organic listed. It was a 10-month process, and there were fees all along the way. This is something that we decided that we needed to do because we had customers that wanted to become certified organic, and in order to do that with their various states, they needed to prove to the listing agencies that they had done organic practices all the way through. So we went through the process to get that piece of paper that says we are organic. And we decided that because that was something we decided to do, we could not pass along that cost to our customers. And we've been in business for 9 years, and we've never raised our prices. So we are very ethically concerned about our business. When we went into this, we decided that we had to approach this the same way that we had approached our previous lives and the work that we had done, and do everything completely above board, and be forthcoming and honest with our customers. So if you want to go to the next slide, that would be awesome. So how we got to be worm farmers, and sorry if I move around because I'm a mover when I talk, so being anchored here so that this can be filmed, I can take this. Pattern emerging. So Michael went online and he started a search for a better worm, and he found African hybrid night crawlers. And they were bred to eat and poop, and that's what worm castings are. They're worm poop. Now, our worm castings are fed a combination of finely ground grains. They get no waste product, they get no garbage, and consequently, there is no odor. It smells like dirt. And that was a deal breaker for me. I said, I'm not going to work every day and have to wear a mask. So because of the smell, it smells good. It smells like springtime dirt. So that worked out very well for us. We also wound up killing all of those worms when we started out. There is a wanted poster in Worm World with our pictures on it because we have killed so many worms. I'll go hit the next button here. Think. Okay. So again, we have about 900,000 fully grown earthworms, and they live in buckets. And the reason we have them living in buckets is because there's 300 per bucket. We know how many worms we've got. We know how much feed to make every day. It's a formula. And a lot of times you'll see in worm farms that they have great big bins. That makes it more difficult to actually conduct business because you don't know how many worms are in there because the worms are reproducing. There's baby worms in there. The baby worms can get lost in the mix. You don't know how much to feed them. And when you're harvesting the castings, it's harder to separate the worms from the castings. And we'll show you how we do that here in just a second. We do everything in our facility, in our barn. We raise the worms. We have a nursery where we have baby worms growing all the time because worms do eventually, without our help, die. They get old and go to worm heaven. And so we have to constantly be replenishing our supply. So we do grow baby worms, and we do the separation of the castings, feeding the worms. We bag the castings ourselves. You're looking at the bag sealer. So if you go to the store and buy a bag of our castings and the seal is bad, it's my fault. I seal the bags. Retail, we have 15 and 30 pound bags. We do custom orders all the way up to a cubic yard, and we just bought a pallet scale, so we know exactly how much they weigh, and they weigh at least 1,200 pounds. We are soon to produce our castings in ton bags because we have started a relationship with another worm farmer, and he sells his castings in ton bags, and he wants tons from us. So we're converting to that weight also. Thank you. This is Michael, and I like this picture because of the lighting. And he doesn't like it, but I put it in here anyway because I'm the wife and I get to do what I want. They live in these black buckets, so we have 6 levels high, and there's 16 buckets to a level, 300 worms in each bucket. So that's how we get our number. We can do simple math. And they get fed every 2 weeks. They get enough feed for 10 days, and the reason they get feed for 10 days but they don't get fed again until 2 weeks is because we're forcing nature. All this is mass-produced nature. So at 10 days, when the food is gone, the worms start moving around, and they bump into each other and mate. And that's how we get the cocoons, and the cocoons have approximately 1 to 2 eggs in the cocoon, and that gets separated out also. I'll show you how in just a second. So the lights are on 24/7 because they're night crawlers, and you don't want to come in the morning to go to work and find that all your livestock has escaped and is on the floor crawling around. So we leave the lights on. Okay, thank you. So this is our black peat dirt, and this is actually what the worms live in. Our finely ground grain gets mixed in with this black peat dirt, and we have an industrial size mixer that everything gets excuse me, put into and mixed up. So yeah, next slide. So this is our shaker, and one day I was leaving work, and somebody asked me, "What are you going to do tonight when you get home?" And I said, "I'm going to worm." And I looked at them and I said, "Who knew worm was a verb?" But that's we have come up with our own lingo. So when we say we're going to go worm, it's we're going to feed the worms, then we're going to shake the worms, and this is our shaker. So when we bring those buckets in, we use our tool cat, and they get put up here. Michael is the dumper, and he will dump the buckets on this machine, which when it's turned on, it goes back and forth, and it's like a nice little Disneyland ride for the worms. They get to ride down the screen. So the worms come off here. The castings fall all the way through the 2 different size screens on the shaker. They ride the conveyor belt up, and that is our super sack. That's our cubic yard size. Okay? And this is him shaking the worms. So this is him worming. Put the ing on the end of that, so it is officially a verb. And next one, I'm moving very quickly. So once the worms are shaken out, they get put in these little tub buckets, and then we pour them back into the buckets with new dirt and feed mixed in. And somebody once asked us, "Well, don't you say there's 300 worms per bucket, don't you have to count them?" And I said, "Well, after you do this a couple of 100,000 times, you can eyeball 300 worms. So we can eyeball it and know that we've got the right number of worms in there, okay? And this picture I had to leave in. You guys are getting the very, very short version. This is a young man that was in Michael's class at DMAC a number of years ago, and he became fascinated with the worm business, and he would come down and help us occasionally, especially during our busy time of year. So this is February when we start bagging the retail orders, and this is the sealer. This is exactly what I use to seal the bags, which is so high-tech. And this big dark thing here is a frozen ball of worm castings. And because it's nature, the worm castings can freeze and thaw and get wet and get dry. It's just nature. It does whatever nature does. But we brought a cubic yard sack in from outside. It was February. It was frozen. And that was the center of the bag. And he thought it would be funny to use that as a footstool. So he showed that picture to his sister, who is very, very smart, but not a lot of common sense. And she said, what do you have your feet on? And he said, well, sis, that's worm poo. And she said, well, how big is that worm? I love that story, so I have to tell it. Okay, and I think the next, okay, this is Michael, and I did, you're going to have to take me down. I did 12 minutes.
Oh, well, very quickly. She always talks more than I do. Always, 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 always. Real quickly, how this all works is that everything on Earth, with the exception of some trees in northern Minnesota and some of the subarctic zones, every plant on Earth used to grow in worm castings. Where we're standing now was high grass prairie, probably, and that prairie was created with ashes and worm poop. Now, of course, there were buffalo, there were elk here then, there were deer, antelope, all those things too. And if a plant got lucky, it might get pooped on by one of those mammals. But for the most part, what built the soil were the worms, and then the fires that would rage through, leave an ash behind, and given the soil its 5-foot depth, we didn't get here when our ancestors got here. So there's a great book out there. He's written 2. This one's called Teeming with Microbes. He's got another book out there, but it explains that good soil is healthy soil. My son's fond of saying that anybody could probably survive on Pepsi and Twinkies, but you wouldn't feel very good. And that's kind of what happens with soil once it's used too long. It starts to wear out. And of course, the best and least expensive, well, not anymore really, but one of the more least expensive ways to do it finally was with chemicals. And it changed the world, didn't it? In the United States, Iowa itself feeds most of the world and could feed all of the world if it really had to. So healthy soil, good healthy soil has microbial life in it. And you dig it up and you see not only worms, but there's all kinds of little bugs and things in there. And they're keeping the soil loose, and they're creating a world where the plant can live and live optimally. Good soil has a lot of it. Castings provide this balance, and that's important because the soil needs to be broken up. Perfect soil looks like, when you dig it up, looks like chocolate cake. You get it out of the ground, it looks like that. That's apparently what was here when they first put a plow down here. All right. Microbes eat dead plant life, and microbes beget microbes beget microbes. They eat each other, they eat plant life, and they reproduce like mad. So worms digest everything to sustain their lives, and they leave behind microbes, and it just keeps going. So as long as their microbes are being fed, they not only increase, they reproduce, they increase, they keep increasing as long as there's food, it keeps going. And it starts all over again. We make castings tea. That is a really good product. We started out, we make it only for ourselves because it doesn't really keep. In microbes in water only last for about 24 to 48 hours. That's why otherwise we'd bottle it and sell it, but it doesn't really work very well. So what we do is take one of Traci's knee highs, nylon ones, not the sock ones, and I put a couple scoops of worm castings in it, and I put it in a bucket of water. And every time I walk by it, I dunk it like you would a tea bag. And after 48 hours, I put it onto, watering can, and I water the plants with it. And now the plant gets fed in 2 ways. The castings in the soil, because I plant everything, worm castings, and I plant it in construction clay, which came up when we had the barn build. Now, I've been doing it for enough years now that it's actually improved the soil quite a bit. But in the beginning, it was a handful of worm castings, and then I would dump on top of them castings tea. And my tomatoes were over my head every year. And what that usually means when tomatoes get that tall is that too much nitrogen, you don't get much fruit, you just get a lot of plant. In our case, in a couple of weeks, we'll be getting a shopping bag of tomatoes off our plants every day, and we won't keep ahead of it. It's wonderful in composting because, again, microbes in the worm castings put into unlimited food, they go crazy. My favorite story on this was I was going into town one day, and the power company was cleaning out our ditches, taking down some of the trees. And the guy pulls up in the big truck and he says, "Hey, you want some wood chips?" And I said, "No." He said, "Well, if you let them sit for a few years, it's pretty good fertilizer." And I said, "Well, this is a fertilizer company. Need any?" And he finally said, "Dude, could I just dump some here?" And I felt sorry for him. And I said, "Yeah, you can dump some there." And then I went to town, learning a hard lesson. Never tell somebody they can dump some there and then go to town. When I got to back, it was probably from me to almost to the doors there and up here. And there it was. And he covered up my hydrant, so I couldn't use water out of that hydrant. And I thought, oh, well, this is what you get. So that was in August. And I didn't do anything with it, I just left them there. The next March, it was raining and snowing one day, rain mixed with snow, and I was out in the tool cat, and I had the forks on, so I thought, well, I'm just going to pick that up a little bit and see what it's doing. So I stuck the forks in it, and I brought it up a little bit, and I thought, oh, look, it's steaming. That's what it's supposed to do. And I wanted to get a closer look, and I got out of the truck, and it wasn't steaming, it was smoking. And I have 15 acres of timber, and I thought, this is not good. So I had just shaken out. I went inside and got what was left over, which we call rescue dirt. I took it out there and dumped it on top under the theory of it's raining and snowing, it'll make it even wetter, maybe it'll cool this thing down. And then I just kept doing it. And some days I did it, and some days I didn't. I would forget. There was nothing scientific about this at all. And the least scientific thing about it at all was I kept dumping dirt on there, and my pile never went down. Now, anybody with a more curious mind than mine would have said, well, that's not possible, but I'm not apparently that curious. So this was March. In July, I thought, I'm going to lift that up again and see how it's doing. And when I lifted it up, it was topsoil. So all those wood chips from live trees, not from dead trees, live trees were turned into topsoil in about 4 months. I've now done it twice more, so it wasn't an accident. It can be done. That's what happens when you have unlimited food. So in composting, it's really great. And as a product, it's impossible to make a mistake. You can't put too much on. If you put too little on, then later on put some more on. You don't really have a problem you can't burn anything, you won't leave streaks, it just won't happen. And I said this already, it's one-step lawn care, truly. A few years ago, Scott came out with that system and had 4 different things to do. And one of them was moisture retention. They added moisture retention in there. And what they added was worm castings. And I know this because I know the guy that sold it to him. So we put this on most yards, even new builds, where they always scrape off the soil, and then they leave out this much, and then there's clay under that when they build a house. And then the contractor sells it to Menards, and you buy it back to put it back on your yard. This is one step. If you put it on, even in that situation, spring and fall for 2 years, so 4 applications, you might be done fertilizing forever. And people tell me all the time, I'm not a true businessman because you don't ever tell your clients that, at some point they don't need your product, but again, that's not how we operate. So 4 applications, and again, you might be done because it's going to break up the hard pan as they expand and contract with moisture, and they feed the plant, and they feed the plant moisture when they need it. So if the plant needs copper, if the plant needs nitrogen, it feeds that. When a plant doesn't need it, the castings stop. Again, symbiotic relationship has been there for millions of years, so this all works. So if you do it, what happens is it expands and contracts, it breaks up your soil, the native worms can get back in, and once they're back, you don't need me because you've got your own worms in there pooing and doing their job. So, yeah. Oh, that's up there because we really like the picture. Colin took that picture. He always wanted to see his dog on the screen, so that's Axel. They work great in your spreader, but they got to be a little dry. This is manure, so it's going to be a little damp. So there are times when it clogs up a little bit. That's not how we put it out. When I put it on my yard, I use a coffee cup and a bucket, and I toss it around because it goes ultimately where it needs to go. Oh, and that's Dozier, his other dog. So it's safe for the pets. It's safe for your kids. You can actually eat this stuff. It's not going to hurt you. We breathe it in every day. We get it in our mouths, in our ears, up our nose every day. It's not going to hurt you. It's not going to hurt the kids. If they can walk in it barefoot 2 seconds after you put it on, it's not going to burn the dog's feet. It's supposed to be there. It's not going to hurt anything. And that's our retail bags. As Tracy said before she was doing the commercial, that's what they look like. And I'll stop talking. I think that's it. I'll stop talking, and if anybody has a question for Tracy or myself, let us fire away. Did we come in under time? So, okay.
Oh, good.
Okay. Hey.
It seems like I have a lot of questions. I have, just a little vegetable garden out in Urbandale suburb, and a compost. And I'll tell you, it's amazing how, stuff that would maybe go in with a smell, it comes out just like, say, fresh dirt smell. So good. What is what was it? The worm tower?
Oh,
Is that what is that?
we should have a picture. And we did have a picture of it, but it's got like four little trays in it. And then you put the worms in the bottom tray, and you give them some feed, and worms like to move up. So then you put once that looks like it's all soil, then you put a little more food in the next level, and they move up there, and the next level, and they move up there, and the next level, they move up there. Yeah. And again, really, the scent, the odor on that's not bad. I had it in our living room behind a chair, and nobody ever noticed. Yeah. As long as you don't there are some things that really, when they rot, you can't use that stuff. But, eggshells, newspaper, stuff like that, it had no odor. And unfortunately, I just was really bad at it.
So when they go through the food, is that pretty much 100% castings at that point? When you separate out the worms, you pretty much take everything else out?
Yeah.
And that's all, it's all castings?
It's all casting. Ours are all castings. Sometimes when you do it with the worm tower, you're going to get some cocoons in there.
Oh.
But we have a system that takes the cocoons out. So when you buy that from us, that's 100%. Nothing's 100%. Probably 99% castings.
Yeah.
There's an opportunity of things getting in there, but not much.
So do you sell in larger quantities to organic farms versus, the retail bags?
Earlier this spring, or earlier this summer, actually, we sent 25 tons one week and then 15 tons the next out to Oklahoma. We've sent tons to Michigan. We've sent tons to Florida, to North Carolina.
I learned a lot about shipping. Stuff I never wanted to know about shipping. It is a complicated process. And we were loading one truck up, and it was when we first started sending these bulk orders out. And the guy picking up, I said, boy, have I learned a lot about shipping. And he said, well, what's so hard about this? I pick it up and take it away. And I said, you have the easy part. But yeah, we send all over the country. And we do custom orders for people. We just got a custom order in today. The guy gave us the dimensions of his yard and said, tell me what I need to buy. And so we'll give him exactly what he needs to cover his lawn.
So how much do you produce in a year in tons or however you count it?
Well, I think at this point, last winter, our power went off. Power going off is part of our life, but power went off 5 times during a blizzard, and we lost a bunch of worms. At that point, before that happened, we were producing about a cubic yard, 1,200 pounds every 3 days. Now it probably takes us about 3.5 or 4 days average to get 1,200 pounds because we're raising worms up and we'll get back up there again. But so a couple tons a week. No, it's like milking. If anybody here grew up on a farm and we're around milking, that's what it's like.
Fascinating presentation. So thank you for enlightening us on the world of worms. I know President Doug isn't going to ask this question, but so I thought I'd ask it for him on his behalf. Do you ever have difficulty putting 10 pounds of castings in a 5-pound bag?
Yeah, actually, we tried that. You know, the sad thing about spending your whole life as a public employee is that you don't know how the rest of the world works. And so we learned a lot of things, you know, about how the commercial world works. People like us were ignorant of. So it's been a learning process, but yeah, we've tried that. Don't.
So, in all seriousness, what's the temperature that you keep your warehouse at? You mentioned that you keep the lights on 24/7, but what's the optimum temperature that you try to maintain for production?
About 72. These are African night crawlers. They can take the heat, but they can't take the cold. Once it drops below 68, we start to have die-off. And so when that happened during the blizzard, we lost a bunch of worms. The ones in the middle of the buckets did pretty well, but if they're out towards the ends, they didn't. So we try to keep it at 72, and as you can imagine, heat is our biggest input. So
I tried early on to put all the worms in little sweaters. It wiggled right out. So that didn't work, so we actually had to keep the heat on in the barn. And it is warmer in the barn than it is in our house in the wintertime because I can actually keep a sweater on. And it's easier to keep me warm, and that is no small task, than it is to keep him warm. So we opt to make sure the worms are kept at the proper temperature.
I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about the commercial worm industry, how big it is, and are you average size or way above average size, and how many of these exist in Iowa or in the country? And then another question, I previously lived in Ames and they brought in the National Tilth Lab, and I always wondered what they did. And I think you partially answered it when you talked about how soil is created. And I wondered if you worked with them or they gather information from operations like yours, or if there's any connection between the two.
I'll do the last one first. And as with everything, the first guy there, so they work, I think, with a guy, I think he's in Boone, but he's a fish emulsion guy. So he sells fish emulsion, which is a wonderful, wonderful fertilizer. Downside of fish emulsion is it smells like fish. And if you put it in your garden, sometimes the coons think that there's a fish down there and they dig it up. It doesn't happen much with us, and it smells. Ours doesn't, and fish emulsion really is. So I think they deal with him mostly. We've had a few inquiries from them over the years, but nothing went forward. So what was the first question? The industry, we know of one other producer that we think is about our size, but he's not big on communication. There are a few other ones our size in Nebraska. But see, the farther away you get from peat, the harder it is to do this. So they have a tendency to stay in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. In Iowa, we have, like I said, one about our size. I think that we're probably average to above average size. The big one is out in Wisconsin, and a lot of people just produce for him. So we don't do that, but they do.
And we're actually one of the few commercial worm farms our size that has a retail market as big as we do. And you'll see there's a couple of national brands out there, and we don't do business with them because they've come to us and they wanted to buy from us, which is okay because we're OMRI listed, so everybody knows what they're getting. But we know that one of those national companies buys from anybody and everybody, and we just didn't want to be a part of that. So we are limited in our retailers. We have probably from year to year anywhere from 25 to 35 stores that retail our product, and that is only because up until now, one or both or all three of us have worked, and to expand that market has been difficult. But now that we're both retired and full-time worm farmers, we're hoping to travel more and expand our market. But we moved into the Florida market this spring because actually a customer of ours moved down there and started a huge market garden farm and contacted me and said, I want your worm castings. The stuff that is available down here just isn't the quality that you have. So that's how we started there. And she actually said, I want not only your bulk product for my farm, but I want a pallet of your product to sell. So she bought a pallet of those bags to sell. Yes, sir.
For a typical lawn application, how many pounds of product might be needed for, say, an acre, for example?
If you have poor soil, and so if you call us up and say, I want to put this on my lawn, we're going to ask you some questions. It's kind of like adopting a pet because we're going to ask you a bunch of questions. We don't want to know if you're worthy of our castings. We just want to make sure we're not overselling you. And we'll ask you the condition of your soil and how square footage or acre. And then we give you an assessment. If you have bad soil, sandy, clay, hard packed soil, the recommendation is 10 pounds per 100 square feet. If you think you have medium soil, we're going to back off that anywhere up to a half. And our philosophy on that is that you know where we are. Our worms eat and poop every day. We always have castings coming. We would rather have you come back for more than have you miffed because you bought too much. So we'll do an assessment for you. For an acre with bad soil, we would probably recommend 3/4 of a cubic yard to a full cubic yard. But we have sold like a half a cubic yard to people because they said their soil was pretty decent. And we're going to take you at your word.
And then for, so a lot of lawns in Iowa might go dormant, like you can see the golf course is partially dormant. Does the castings, are they quality to where they would keep that grass alive, or would it still require much more water to do that? And then the second question would be similar to golf course, maybe they're doing fertilizer applications that are chemicals. How does that work with that?
The chemicals work with it fine. In fact, most of this stuff goes out to chemical fertilizer companies. About a train load a week goes out to Scott's. So it mixes fine with chemical fertilizers. It just enhances. It doesn't really hurt anything. It doesn't hurt the castings. I got to quit answering the second question first. So what's that?
Water.
Water. Yes, because it retains water. Lawns will stay like this is getting a little droughty now, and it does this every year after the 4th of July, starts to get a little droughty. It'll stay green longer. We have customers in certain states where a product that's legal is not legal here, and they use it because if you're going to grow their product in Colorado where it doesn't rain, it has to retain soil or it has to retain moisture, and it does. And I'm getting the folks are moving in on me. So thank you, everybody. Enjoyed this. We always enjoy the Rotary. We've done a lot of these. And when I was an agent, I actually did a lot of Rotaries too. So It's always a pleasure, so thank you for having us.
And I can hand it to him.
All right. Thank you very much for Traci Michael for spending time with us today. It was very informative. I know a lot more now about worm farming and its uses than I did when I got here. Again, today I'm not wearing a mask at the podium because I'm well distanced from everyone, but hopefully those of you out watching on YouTube are wearing a mask. Just kidding. In the honor of you being with us today, we're donating the book Warbler Wave, and I'm going to donate that to the downtown school library in your honor. I think you've written a note or two in there for the future young readers. I want to thank everyone for being with us here today, whether in person or on our YouTube channel, or you can watch it now or at a later time. And believe it or not, we have more meetings coming up. Next week on the 20th, we have Renee Hardman, who is the CEO of Big Brothers Big Sisters. Oh, could this be our? It is. It's our fugitive in Bermuda. And I asked if he heard the comment about extradition. He said, "Oh yeah, I'm seeking asylum here right now." So, and I'm not making this up. I really did get that text. On August 27th, again, direct from Boone, Iowa, is District Governor Steve Dakin. And I think he's out currently doing a comedy tour because every Monday he sends a joke to all of the presidents in District 6000. Some of them are just a little bit better than others, I might say. On September 3rd, we were not planning on meeting here because of a major golf event, but that has since been canceled, so we will be meeting here. We have not yet determined what the program will be, but I'm sure it's going to be extremely exciting. And with that, we're sincerely appreciative of everyone cooperating with our new and ever-changing procedures for our meetings. You may not know, but as of yesterday, Wakanda did not have power here, so we did not know if we were going to be meeting. And then when they did get power back, they did not have internet service. So we didn't know if we were going to be able to live stream or if we just record the meeting and then put it on YouTube, but everything fell in place as it should today. So hopefully good news, good things will continue to happen. Again, thank you for being with us today and being a part of the Rotary Club of Des Moines. And to those of you who tuned in online, with that, we are adjourned. Oh.